Tariffs, David. President Trump's tariffs, or proposed tariffs, have been making a lot of news. I want to throw two headlines at you and get your take. One is from Fox Business. Trump tariffs could impact biggest U.S. meat producer. That's Tyson. And then locally, the Omaha World Herald ran a story, why Donald Trump's tariffs could affect Nebraska exponentially more than other U.S. states, and it quotes Ernie Goss and other local economic officials. People in the ag sector do get nervous, David, about talk of tariffs and trade wars because, for instance, our beef, our soybeans, our corn, our exports in Nebraska, tremendously dependent on foreign markets.
Yeah, I mean, we sell the majority, over 80% of Nebraska corn is sold in Mexico, I believe. It's a very large portion.
Well,
in fact, we built rail car. We've got a railway that literally was built to move the corn south.
Well, that's what
right?
the guy quoted from the Farm Bureau in the story in the World Herald says, the railroad system is built to get corn to Mexico. It's our closest and most efficient trading partner. And in the Tyson story, the guy said, well, maybe these tariffs won't actually happen or won't be as severe as initially proposed, at least with Canada and Mexico. And or he said, we got to find some new markets. It is a big world out there. But
absolutely is. And I would tell you this, though. If you don't study history, you're doomed to not learn from it or repeat it, right? The one thing we know from Trump is he doesn't start soft in negotiations. All you have to do is read his original first book way back in the 80s, The Art of the Deal. His negotiating tactic is to swing big and hard first, and then if you submit, he will then back off to get the deal done if it's a win-win situation. And we've already seen this with Mexico, with Canada, just in this most recent round, and to some extent with China. And so, I mean, I would just point out, not just on the agricultural side, this is certainly of concern for our local growers and folks that raise cattle, et cetera, but the aluminum and steel tariffs, right, that just kind of are going to be enacted now and were announced. Well, just so you understand, China is importing 60% of their steel into Canada and then dumping it in the U.S. because it's cheaper than if they send it direct. Again, there's always workarounds, right? So China simply goes to Canada, and that's the reason for that tariff to punish China, not necessarily Canada. But again, if people do what is asked on the other side, you usually see him give in or give some concessions back. It's just his style. And it's worked thus far. You would have to give him credit. So again, while you get scared of it, the idea, though, is, listen, if we don't put tariffs, we fight inflation, right? Because if inflation gets out of control and we can't get our prices aligned, then that's a hidden tax on the American consumer. And we lose jobs because somebody is making an inferior product and dumping it in our market cheaper than we're manufacturing it here. So again, do you care about buying American? I do. Not everybody does. I get that. But sometimes you're going to pay more to buy a product made here. Now, what's changed let's face it, you go all the way back in the 1800s, we've had tariffs, and certain goods were very expensive to ship across the Atlantic Ocean. It was a 4 or 5 day journey, even when we had powered boats, right? It was weeks when it was just sails. But now you can ship products efficiently, quickly, et cetera. And on speaking of the shipping, right? What did we build? What did we spend a ton of money, a lot of lives lost building an infrastructure wonder of the world?
Panama Canal.
Absolutely, the Panama Canal. And then we basically turned it over to Panama with the idea so that they could liberate their own economy and they could make the fees. And they turned around and just kind of handed it to China in terrible decision making. So he said no. And by the way, if you go on Google Maps or something now, you'll notice there's a body of water that officially has changed its name. So he's putting his stamp on for sure this time, Trump 2.0. But I wouldn't get too overly worried about these tariffs just based on his historical precedent of how he kind of swings the big hammer and then backs off and shakes somebody's hand and gets a deal done.
Relax, Tyson. He's just playing chicken. Sorry, I went there. I couldn't help it.